Miami Dolphins are releasing veteran pass rusher Bradley Chubb.
They are releasing superstar Tyreek Hill.
Dolphins have traded wide receiver Jaylen Waddle to the Broncos.
Minkah Fitzpatrick was traded away. I mean,
they are really kind of tearing this thing down to the studs, right?
The Miami Dolphins.
The Miami Dolphins just had the worst offseason I've ever seen. The phrase, a necessary evil, has never been so applicable to an NFL franchise. The Miami Dolphins' new regime, head coach Jeff Hafley and general manager John Eric Sullivan plunged into the 2026 free agency period with a rip-off-the-Band-Aid approach to their roster. They did that knowing that Band-Aid was deeply embedded into their skin, and as they ripped it off, half their fucking face came with it. Exposed like the Terminator at the end of T2. The round of harsh cuts was just phase 1. Phase 2, they are now lowering themselves completely into that vat of molten lava for total annihilation.
I have to go away.
No, don't do it. Please, don't go.
After they traded away one of the league's top wide receivers, Jaylen Waddle, to the Broncos, the Dolphins of the last 6 seasons terminated. Who the hell is Malik Willis going to throw the football to? Even in a rebuild, you want to keep a few good players on your roster, right? Malik Willis is the Joe Pesci meme as he walked in to sign with Miami.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
And Devin Achane is the lonely Will Smith meme in the skill room. The Dolphins got rid of 5 highly paid starters from the 2025 season. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, gone. Bradley Chubb, gone. Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, gone. This team will carry roughly 165 to 175 mil in dead cap hits, which is essentially the Florida Marlins payroll combined over the last 2 seasons. More than that. Now, I think the Dolphins will have just 111 million for 2026, which is actually less than the Saints. And I understand this is a teardown, but I'm not sure if every single one of these moves was necessary. GM John Eric Sullivan has decided, though, to clean out the entire roster compiled by former general manager Chris Greer. Even the good players. There's one big thing Miami has done that doesn't make sense to me, which I'll discuss today. And seeing all of this play out as a Dolphins fan is a tough pill to swallow. A jagged little pill that might take them into the Matrix, or one that will cause them to wake up as a Patriots fan. Today, I, Brandon Perna, want to highlight the worst offseason for a single team ever. It's incredibly risky, maybe misguided, but it could work. Probably won't know until 2028. Some teams go all in. The Dolphins went all not in. Are you all not in here at That's Good Sports? Please subscribe. We're about 1,500 subs away from 860,000. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks and my code TGS. Now, I'm not sure what is crazier, me building 4 winning NBA lineups and the only losing lineup featuring my guy Jokic, or the fact that 58.3 thousand people follow my Prize Picks account now. That's a lot of pressure. I haven't played an NBA lineup for close to a week because I don't want to tarnish my 4-1 record. My ego is that fragile. Plus, I started to annoy Jess with the amount of basketball I was watching. Here's my picks anyway, and if you enjoyed playing in daily fantasy, you just use my code TGS when you sign up, and Prize Picks will get you $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. There's also a college basketball tournament. There's some shit going on this month if you want to build lineups for that. My goal right now is to generate 1,000 new signups for Prize Picks by the end of the NFL draft. That's a month and a half, and that's my last real chance to earn serious bonuses from Prize Picks before we get to the true lull of the offseason. Every 200 signups here generates a big bonus for me and for That's Good Sports. So I greatly appreciate the support from anyone who likes playing in these games. And if you don't, I respect that too. That is all right. Just like the video and subscribe.
All that has to happen for this crazy rebuild to work is Malik Willis has to be a top 5 QB, or suck so bad they get a number 1 QB. Miami has to be the best team in the NFL at drafting over the next 2 seasons, and Jeff Hafley has to be the best head coach hired in this last cycle. A few free agents they just signed in March have to be diamonds in the rough, and Josh Allen and Drake May have to retire. That's all that needs to happen for this to work. I feel like this is a required follow-up to our 70-20 revisited episode. When we reviewed that game and what it meant to the Dolphins and the Broncos, we highlighted how each team shot off in opposite anticipated directions. The Broncos went towards the light, and the Dolphins down towards hell. The Broncos actually began to rebuild, and the Dolphins began to swim to that Japanese cove where those porpoises were inhumanely slaughtered without mercy. We touched on the idea that Miami would be borrowing from Denver's cut Russell Wilson playbook early in terms of how Miami would move on from the Tua contract. What Miami did not realize is that you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Denver let Justin Simmons, Josie Jewell, and Lloyd Cushenberry leave along with Russell Wilson. 2 of those guys didn't even play in 2025, and Lloyd Cushenberry was just released from the Titans. They did not hemorrhage their top playmakers just to free up cap space down the road. The reason this move worked in Denver is because they kept their core together, something Miami's not doing. But to be fair, maybe Miami doesn't have a core, right? After trading Jaylen Waddle to Denver, the Miami Dolphins do not have a single player on their roster set to make more than $11.3 million against the cap. And they are barely under the cap. That is one of the most fucked up NFL payroll situations I've ever seen. There are just 4 players remaining from their 2023 starting roster. It's like they tried to remodel their home, but also tore down every load-bearing wall with it. Joanna Gaines just shit her pants. As the Dolphins released their former first-round draft pick, Tua Tagovailoa, they in turn allowed him to surpass Russell Wilson for the largest dead cap hit a team would take on for a player in NFL history. Now, dead cap is the amount of money a player has to account for against a team's salary cap, even though that player is no longer on the roster. Tua's total dead cap hit for Miami is $99.2 million. Everybody knows that. And they won't officially release him until after June 1st, which allows them to spread that $99.2 million over 2 seasons. But then, Bradley Chubb, he's going to account for another $20+ million in dead money. That's exactly what the Broncos did with Russell Wilson and his $240 million contract that culminated in an $85 million dead cap hit. The weird thing, though, is that the salary cap has risen astronomically the last 2 years, so Tua's dead cap hit percentage is actually lower than Russell Wilson. So bravo, Miami. One small win for you. And I can forgive Miami for giving Tua that contract that aged like milk in the Miami sun. When the Dolphins paid him that $212 million, he was coming off his best NFL season with 29 TDs, 4,624 passing yards. It appeared pairing him with head coach Mike McDaniel was the answer, and Tua had improved every year he was in the league, and more importantly, started every game of that 2023 season after he worked diligently in the offseason to mitigate his concussion risk. He took jiu-jitsu lessons, for Christ's sake, to learn how to fall properly. You cannot anticipate him to regress in that situation. So I sympathize. And I think more than anything, injuries really muddied Miami's on-field results post the Tua contract. What really fucked over the Dolphins, though, was their directionless approach to roster building by their former general manager, Chris Grier. His 2024 offseason was viewed as a mistake by the current regime. His contract mistakes are the reason they have 25+ players taking on dead cap money this year. 13 of those players are all that really matter, but that's 2 more players than the 11 you need to be on the field at any given moment. To be honest, though, I'm not even worried about the dead cap money for the Dolphins. That will mostly be irrelevant by 2027. Tyreek Hill, though, was released in February, right? And with his injury and odd behavior or attitude towards the team, that's fine. I think his injury concerns are pretty substantial right now. I don't know how effective he'll be in 2026. But the void left by the production he provided, already a massive hole to fill, and that was before they traded Waddle. Hill's gonna eat up $28 million in cap space in 2026, a staggering 9.38%. And what screwed the Dolphins was Chris Grier, giving Tyreek Hill a 3-year, $90 million extension in 2024. When Miami traded for Tyreek in 2022, they gave up a massive amount of draft picks, something that was sort of a win-win for them and the Chiefs. That was fine. The timing of his extension was not well thought out, though. They extended Hill in 2024. Tua in 2024, gave head coach Mike McDaniel a 3-year contract extension in 2024, handed Jaylen Waddle a well-earned 3-year, $84 million extension in 2024. Jalen Ramsey inked $72.3 million, yes, 2024. None of those men will be on the Dolphins roster this season. Hill had an injury. That was unfortunate. And Tua just proved he was not the future. But getting rid of all 4 of your biggest player extensions from one single offseason, guys, that just does not happen. And I don't care what the circumstances are. Dolphins owner Stephen Ross eventually made the decision to clean the slate. And he fired head coach Mike McDaniel. A knee-jerk reaction, in my opinion, to thinking he was going to hire and be able to land John Harbaugh. Now, that move followed the firing of their GM Chris Grier, which happened all the way back in October of 2025. And I can understand both of those moves, and I generally think it's good practice to bring in a GM and head coach together. That's a different episode. But they went from Mike McDaniel's cocaine party vision to straight-edge, flat-top vision, which might work. What I do not understand is why they are trading away very good offensive weapons like Jaylen Waddle while also paying Malik Willis $22.5 million per year. When I said at the beginning one big thing doesn't make sense, that's it. There's one big thing Miami has done that doesn't make sense to me, which I'll discuss today. Why are you doing that when your total dead money is forcing you to operate at roughly half the salary cap of all the other teams? Why the fuck would you make a splash move for a quarterback and then gut your entire roster? A quarterback who is going to need some help, by the way, because he only has 6 career starts under his belt. 6! I feel like Malik Willis got duped. The Dolphins are paying close to $60 million in dead money for Tua and Zach Wilson. How the fuck does Zach Wilson have dead cap money on your books? I know, Chris Grier, that dumb idiot, gave Zach Wilson a 1-year contract with 4 voided years. The Malik Willis signing is what perplexes me. You could argue that if he comes through the flames and if Miami hits on all, and I mean all of their draft picks in the next 2 drafts, maybe the team is in a spot to eventually extend him by the time his 3-year deal runs out. And I hate to say this, but I do not think there is much of a chance the Dolphins are competitive until 2027 at the earliest. The good news, Miami is projected to have $121 million in cap space in 2027. If you want to argue that maybe tanking is the real plan, that still doesn't make sense with the Willis signing. That's not the right move. You could tank much more easily with Quinn Ewers or even Zach Wilson. To me, the Waddle trade seems like they are making decisions on the fly without clear direction, which is not what you want. Can Malik Willis fail the Dolphins for a physical and rescind the contract that they gave him? Can he do that? Because when you pay Malik Willis the money they did, you're betting on him to be the answer. But then you are not setting him up for success with anything you have done following that contract. This is the Dolphins' receiving room for Malik Willis right now. Tutu Atwell is the #1 receiver. There is no bigger loser in free agency than Malik Willis. Yes, he got paid, but no quarterback will be asked to do more with less than Willis at this moment in 2026. Even Geno Smith has Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. The march for Arch currently looks like a 3-way race between the Dolphins, Jets, and Cardinals. And all of this dumb fuckery really began with the team trading corner Jalen Ramsey and tight end Jonnu Smith to the Steelers for safety Minkah Fitzpatrick in June of 2025. As I noted, Minkah is the only player to be traded by the same team twice, which is what the Dolphins did a few weeks ago. They traded him to the Jets for a 7th round pick. A 7th rounder? Why not just fucking keep him? He's another player that will have nearly $13 million in dead cap for this season. Trading Minkah and Waddle makes me hate what this team is going to have to endure in 2026. At least with Waddle, you got a 1st round pick. Pick number 30, where you could actually find Minkah's replacement. Probably not Waddle's replacement, but trading for a player in June only to trade him again in March for far less, would be a really dumb and highly criticized transaction for a normal football team. But the sheer stupidity of the entire Fitzpatrick situation barely makes a blip in the whole of what Miami is doing. Bradley Chubb, who was signed by the division rival Bills, accounts for $23 million in dead cap money for the Dolphins. Who doesn't need an extra edge rusher or an edge rusher? Apparently defensive genius Jeff Hafley, who did get the most out of the Packers defense after Micah Parsons tore his ACL. Not. That defense sucked balls after one guy went down. The Dolphins are eating $600,000 in dead cap money for kicker Jason Sanders. So Tua, Tyreek, Chubb, Jaylen Waddle, even after the trade, $26 million in dead money. Ramsey, Fitzpatrick, Terron Armstead, who retired, Zach Wilson, Alec Ingold, Jonnu Smith. I'm just listing players who won't play for Miami, but still count against their cap. And I think if you look closely at Spot Track or Over the Cap, you'll see the Dolphins are actually taking cap hits for paying Jay Cutler's bail still. Now, if the objective is to tank, then bravo Miami. This is the most outwardly brash and we don't give a fuck, we are resetting everything button push I've ever witnessed. I would have left Waddle for Malik Willis, but that's just because I have a heart and I don't want to ruin Malik's confidence. Malik is the reason I don't buy that they are tanking. I think in their attempt to tank, they run a much greater risk of ruining Malik's career, and that seems fucked. The Seahawks gave us the Sam Darnold path, right? Well, this is the opposite of that. This is the Sam Darnold going to the Panthers, but about 1,000 times worse path. And here's what I'm hoping for, okay? I'm hoping the Dolphins actually just had the savviest, most under-the-radar free agency period of all time. These sickos signed a new punter, kicker, long snapper, 8 defenders, including Lonnie Johnson, Josh Uche and more, Tutu Atwell, Jalen Tolbert, and a Chargers guard to protect Malik Willis. If these guys are all composed entirely of, say, grit, and Hafley coaches the hell out of that defense, which does still have some talent left, and Zach Sealer, hopefully Chop Robinson takes a step, and honestly one of my favorite linebackers in the NFL and Jordan Brooks, our minds will be collectively blown straight out of their dolphin blowholes. To buy into any of that, this starts with an amazing draft, and there's a whole new staff evaluating talent in Miami, so none of us can say how the draft will actually go for Miami. And many of us remember that Miami had 5 first-round picks in 2020 and 2021, and just Austin Jackson is still on the roster. Miami has a history of not retaining good draft picks. Brandon Jones was selected in 2020, and he's been a key piece on the Broncos defense for the last 2 seasons. In 2021, they drafted Jaylen Waddle, Jalen Phillips, and Javon Holland. All of those guys gone. The ultimate X factor is team owner Stephen Ross. Will he trust his new head coach and general manager? Furthermore, will the new head coach and general manager properly manage their roster when they do hit in the draft and find talent? Properly managing good players, that is where the real change needs to happen for Miami from the top down. Rebuilds are tricky because you have to start getting better at something you previously failed at while also continuing to do well in the areas you previously had strengths. Miami has to be excellent with their 11 draft picks. They have to be confident in Malik Willis if shit goes horribly wrong with their unproven roster currently. Hopefully that's the plan by Hafley and John Eric. My fear is they will crumble again, stuck between 2 ideas, just like the name John Eric. John Eric. Pick one. It's John or Eric, not both. It will be very hard for Miami to be competitive in 2026, and I don't think anyone expects them to be, including themselves. And we will all laugh at their asinine 100 and who gives a shit million in dead money for the season. Maybe though. Maybe by 2027 we start to see the buds of some beautiful flowers in Miami. And I imagine those buds sprouting out of the straightest lines in South Beach. No, the lines of Jeff Hafley's flat top. The 2026 teardown is the Dolphins' necessary evil. Let's just not pretend like cleaning house and stockpiling draft picks equates to real success. I can't think of a team that ever got rid of this many key players and magically turned it around. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube. Again, I hope it works out for you, Miami. I hope everything I said today sounds stupid. God knows I've been wrong before. You need about 99 out of 100 things to go exactly right.